Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm actually sending out, I finished the October minutes for the exec. I'm just sending those out now for August and October, and I'm just leaving them a note that September is still pending.
For executive committee? Oh, you did
Yeah.
the October ones?
Yeah, I just finished them yesterday. I was just trying to come up with a plan to do them and just because I wasn't there that meeting, but I was able to go back and listen to
And watch the video, yeah.
yeah.
Good. After this meeting, I'm gonna hopefully give you the 2 months for the August and
Policy.
September for policy and planning.
Okay.
Um,
Make sure I got this. I didn't do it a PDF, but I can.
Motion detected at the front gate.
Yeah. Okay. And then just to confirm, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 members for the HSAC exec, with 1 being vacant, meaning for the chair. So that would be quorum at 3 plus 1. So quorum will be at 4.
if you have six slots,
Six.
but one is
The
vacant,
vacant. Do you count the vacant?
you don't count the vacant.
Don't count the vacant. Okay. So 5. So 3 for quorum.
But who are the members that you have?
Ebony, Helen Tripp, Sharita, Renee Vaughn, and Colleen Herbert.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah.
Morning, Colin.
Good morning.
Morning.
Motion detected at the front gate.
Let me turn my, hold on, guys. Turn my.
Looks like folks are starting to come in. Let me turn my light on. Looks like it's our team meeting right now. We roll deep, boy. Nobody better mess with us. Colin, how you feeling?
I don't feel horrible. I just sound terrible.
Whoa.
You've been sounding like that for a while, my friend. Have you been to see somebody?
It's only been a few days.
I know this root doctor down here on Pool Road that might be able to do something for you. He got a poultice that you rub on your left elbow that I think might work.
It's just a lot of like drainage down my throat from postnasal drip stuff.
Have you sacrificed a live chicken yet or anything?
I've not done that, but my wife, who is Venezuelan, swears by if you're coughing a lot, you put Vicks Vapor Rub on the bottom of your feet when you sleep and you won't cough at night.
Oh, okay. You tried it?
Yeah, does that work?
That's true. It actually works.
It does work, actually.
What?
We do it with our kids.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we do it with our kids.
Yeah.
I'm about to put some on my feet for no reason.
I don't discount any old school remedies or any of those things because I remember being very sick as a young person, and my great aunt, Aunt Mandy, went and went and put her apron on and went out and pulled a whole bunch of roots from around stuff and around the bottom of trees and grabbed moss and went and made some nasty stuff and made me drink it. I thought I would puke. And then she took vinegar and put in it and some baking soda. It fizzed, and they made me drink the rest of it. They put me under the cover and tucked the sheets on both sides, and I sweated all night long. And the next day, it was gone.
Wow.
I was exhausted, but it was gone. I have no idea what she gave me to drink. Although I think I could see through walls for about 2 days and was able to.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Miss Herbert.
Morning,
Good
Kelly.
morning, Ms. Williams. Good morning, Ebony.
Another one, if you ever get stung by a bee, if you've got somebody with a cigarette, if you take the tobacco out of the cigarette and smash it with a little bit of like saliva, put it on the bee sting, it takes the sting away. If you
That is
don't have that,
absolutely true.
3 different leaves, if you have leaves of 3 different trees, make sure it's not poison ivy or poison oak, but 3 different leaves of 3 different trees will do the same thing mixed with saliva on a bee sting.
My,
And
my aunt used to do it with snuff because she used to dip snuff back in the day. She would take snuff and make a put spit in it and put
Yeah.
it on it, and you could see the stinger come out.
Wow. I know, right, Ebony? I know.
I'm from South Carolina, so I'm familiar with everything they're talking about. It just blows my mind some of the things that they came up with for healing.
So you know Dr. Buzzard then, South
Who?
Carolina. So you know who Dr. Buzzard is in South Carolina, huh?
Buzzard?
Dr. Buzzard was a well-known group worker from Sumter, South Carolina, known throughout Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina.
Oh, I'll have to ask my mama. I'm not familiar with him, but I have to ask my mama. But I'm from Hartsville, so it's not too far from
Yeah.
Sumter. So
They should be.
yeah. Well, we're bonding this morning, guys. This is exciting.
All right, I sent a text over to Sharita and I'll see if I can.
Yeah, Melva, to your comment, like use what you had, right?
Yeah.
So I get
Exactly.
that. Mhm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's true. I don't know what that is.
Like the way that they found out that bone broth was good for you was that the slaves were given the bone and they would boil them down until they became a broth and they would drink it.
And what was that for?
The bone broth they found out was good for colds and for any type of upper respiratory thing. They found out it was good for you, but the slaves found out because that's what they were given. They were given the leftovers like the back and the behind and the bones, and they would just boil it. They would boil it down into till they got a broth. And now you can go in the store and buy bone broth for $5 for the little container. But hey, a lot of those things were discovered out of necessity.
I mean, I don't think $5 is bad. Like, where am I going to go get a bunch of bones from? Like, seriously, where am I going to get that?
Every chicken has bones, so I can get the chicken, eat the chicken, boil the bones, because it's chicken bones that they make the broth from.
Oh yeah, I'm reading it now. It helps with sleep aid, weight loss.
There you go.
It says inflammation. Who knew?
Good morning, Eliza.
We might
morning,
be at
Sally.
quorum. Good morning,
Good
Sally.
morning,
Good morning, Eliza.
Good morning.
All right, I texted Sharita. I haven't heard anything back and sent an email to Renee. Oh, Sharita's on her way.
Has 9 grams of protein.
There you have it.
Are we at quorum or do we still need to
We need
We're
one
waiting
more.
on Colleen or,
Colleen is here.
oh, not Colleen, sorry, Renee or,
Rita.
Sharita.
Yeah. And I hadn't received any emails.
Sharita said she's on her way, and I sent an email to Renee.
Okay.
I don't have a cell phone for Renee, but if somebody does, we can text her.
I'll text her.
Hey, Colin.
Yes,
I took a look at the agenda that you sent out last night, and I noticed there was no update for subcommittee listed on there. Do you know for the November HSAC meeting, what committee is gonna be presenting?
yeah, the only thing I sent last night was the agenda for today. So
Okay.
we'll plan the November and we'll put the subcommittee on when we do the agenda for the November meeting.
Okay, I just thought it was something we was gonna go through as part of the plan for September agenda for the
November agenda.
November agenda.
Sharita's coming in, and I just texted.
We are at quorum.
I think it's performance management is up. All right, we're at quorum, Madam Chair.
All right, well, good morning again. We've learned some things while we were waiting about, what is it? Bone broth and roots to help with inflammation, all types of things this morning. So it's really good to see everyone present. So we're just gonna call this meeting to order at 10:11. And the first thing that we're gonna do this morning is approve our minutes. Did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes that Keisha sent out on yesterday, this morning, I think?
I
You have
actually
any-
put them out this morning.
This
like
one, okay.
10 minutes ago, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions about it? Any updates, corrections? We're good to go. Can I get a motion to approve both minutes? Or do you want to wait until next meeting to give everybody a chance to review them? Yes, no, anyone? You want to approve them now, or do you want to have more time to review them? We can approve them next meeting.
I'm thinking they're still reading.
I didn't hear you, Keisha.
I
We're
don't see
still reading.
anything, I don't see anything glaring in my review of the minutes, so I can definitely motion unless my colleagues want to defer to another time or wait.
Go ahead and make a motion, Sharita.
I'll move that we accept the minutes as provided to us.
Do we have a second?
staff can't second, right? Like it'd be weird
No.
if I totally second, just, I can't.
It would need to be Colleen or no,
A second.
Thank you. All agree. Please put yes in the chat, no, or abstain. Okay. The other item on the agenda is to talk about our September planned September agenda. September.
November.
November.
yeah, sorry, I was trying to do too much yesterday, and
That's okay. I was like, wait,
and
what are we doing?
I was like, wait a minute, we don't have a time machine.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, let me share my screen, and we can think through what needs to go on the agenda. I think it's performance management. Yeah, we can forward that to you, Sharita. All right. November 2024. We've got a welcome, approval of minutes. I think it's performance management's update. Does that sound right to everyone?
Yes, because I think we're still looking for a chair, and lead agency staff had a conversation about that. Any
Mhm.
possible suggestion this week?
Yep.
Also, I think for the when does this meeting happen? It's November. Is it later in November or?
It's like the 14th.
Okay. I'm wondering, Colin, if we have time, maybe Ricky and I can look at sort of at a glance for, like, it could be a good time for, oh, never mind. It's gonna go through policy and planning. I got my meeting synergy crossed up, so never mind.
Okay. Agenda items that we need to or want to cover or go over at the executive committee meeting.
I would like to, oh, sorry. I was gonna say for this one, Colin, the November, we should probably just touch on, like during the announcement section, the homeless vigil that occurs in December. And also, note that the goal is to have lead also take a more active role in the vigil this year. So, yeah.
So
Just-
have you been in touch with,
Brianna?
yes.
Yes. We haven't talk yet. They wanted to wait until we get a little closer to it, but we've talked about basic stuff like when to get the flyers out and the word out, and I'm maintaining the list of all of the deceased that need to be included. And then we'll do, of course, a little more research to make sure that we have representation of everybody, at least that we have knowledge of who might have passed away. So yes, we've been in touch and we've agreed to be in touch a couple more times on the way to the visit.
I was just gonna add, I can't remember right now, but I know that we had a very robust conversation in the full HSAC meeting that I agreed to bring into up for discussion in the policy and planning meeting this month, and I just didn't know we wanted to provide any kind of update on that discussion around the bond housing, and I think Sally also just put it in the chat as well. So I don't know if we just want to give a update to the full body, like a synopsis of what we talk about in policy and planning as it relates to that.
What would that look like, Sharita? Policy planning update on.
I would just say housing bond update.
Okay, related to prioritization, preference, related to what? Or
I don't know, because I don't know where that discussion is going to go in policy and plan, because we went in a whole lot of different directions in that discussion. And so I think I have a better idea once we have the meeting and start to highlight kind of the recommendations or suggestions that come from that discussion.
okay. The other thing, I think we have it on policy and planning, but it's something that we should think about as to whether or not HSAC wants to make any recommendations for any budget requests to city and county. This would be a good time to start putting together those letters to send to elected officials and city leadership. So it's something that's on. I think Sharita, you and I'll finalize the policy and planning agenda. But if we're gonna do something, this would be a better time to do it than waiting until December or January. Just to start the ball
I agree
rolling.
with that. That could be part of the follow-up discussion on our previous policy and planning session where we kind of like identified top things. So I think we could yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
So that means we'll need to land on kind of a recommendation of dollar amount and items on Monday that can come.
We have questions from Ricky and Sally. Ricky?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is in relation to Sharita, your request for an update around the housing bond, and I just would like a little clarity on it. So during HSAC a couple weeks ago, a spreadsheet was presented of different properties that had units reserved for people who are at the 30% or less AMI mark. When you say you want an update on that, are you asking for more of that spreadsheet to be completed because there were some missing items? Are you looking for something different from that spreadsheet? Like if you could just elaborate more on that, because we want you to be best prepared for policy and planning and have the information that you were hoping to get.
So I don't want to plan too much out because I wanted to us to be able to have organically have a conversation and kind of let the pressing issues rise to the top. I think starting with maybe revisiting and bringing back that spreadsheet might be a good point, a good place to start. Like just to have somewhere to go and land in the policy and planning conversation, to just present some stuff, maybe updates on the list, like from the things that were missing. But I don't know what the discussion of policy and planning is going to evolve into, as far as what the update to the greater HSAC would be. You get what I'm saying?
Okay.
But I think in preparation for policy and planning, any things that we can do, have prepared in advance to be able to share as part of that discussion, to guide that discussion a little bit, would be greatly
Okay.
appreciated. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sharita.
Mm-hmm.
Sally?
I didn't
you-
realize I was on mute. I apologize. I was saying Sally, you can go
Okay.
ahead.
Oh, sorry, and I missed a little bit of what happened. I think my question or comment was also on I guess from the last HSAC meeting, it wasn't clear to me. It seems as if there's been a hard time getting information from multifamily planning. And so I didn't know, and there was some discussion about having somebody from there come to one of the HSAC maybe committee meetings. Is that the issue, or is it a different issue? I guess I'm just trying to sort of clarify in terms of sort of, homeless many units sort of with a homeless preference or set aside, for properties coming online, if that made sense.
It does. I will just, oh, Sharita, go ahead. I'm sorry. I see your hand up.
Great point, Sally. Thank you for keeping us on our toes and fresh on this issue. What I'm trying to do, what I would like to do as policy and planning chair this year, is try to figure out how we move the in-depth conversations out of the HSAC meeting and have the work done in policy and planning to present to HSAC, so that HSAC is doing more of the governance, voting on the work that's been done by us outside of the full HSAC meeting, because that's where the discussion should happen. We should be like executing plans in the HSAC meeting. So if your suggestion is maybe have somebody from multifamily be present for the discussion time in policy and planning, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so I think that, I completely, I think that totally makes sense. I guess I'm just sort of asking the question, why is it so hard to get information from multifamily planning? And is that really the issue? And if the issue is just getting information to inform the conversation, what's the pathway forward? And maybe that's inviting somebody to policy and planning.
It's multifamily does the RFPs. Then things get handed off to developers, and then developers hand things off to property managers. Contracts are written. So there's a piece that compliance has to be part of, and is looking into what is in what contracts and what's not in contracts, what tenant selection plans are in place. So there's a lot of follow-up on things that are happening right now to see what's in place, what's in contracts, does the contract line up with the RFPs, and getting the pieces in place. That's the piece that takes time, because once buildings get built, it gets handed off to other people, and the name of the building as it starts isn't the same name as when it's finished and gets a certificate of occupancy. And buildings, once they're built, aren't always leased up immediately, just because it takes a while to get the certificate of occupancy. So there's pieces that the compliance team is working to put together and looking into to see what our options are and what is currently in contract, what are we able to hold people accountable to based on what's in contracts and those pieces, and tenant selection plans, and working with current folks to figure out what our options are for units that have not been leased that are coming online. So that's a little bit of the backstory of why it's not always as easy as it seems at this point.
Like we have a question for Anthony, then Ricky, then Sharita.
Thank you. I'm not muted, right? Okay. I just want to say, I think Colin offered a good backstory about it. I will say that within the CDD team right now, there are discussions that are leading to a single source of information for all of this development, for all of the units, for all of the ones that have been completed, for all the ones that are in the pipeline, for all the ones that are under construction, what percent of AMI certain units will be at. So all of that is happening right now, literally. And hopefully over the next 2 to 3 weeks, more good information will be available. We'll keep pushing and participating in the conversations to make sure that we can come back with some great information. So I just wanted to say that. And I think, you know, given what we've been able to present so far, I can say with some assurance that there's been good progress on this front. And so I think that that you'll be pleased with the progress in terms of just learning more about what's coming. So I'll stop there for now, but just know that that work is actively underway within CDD.
Okay. Ricky?
Thank you. So this is just kind of like spitballing, but like, since there is this weird dynamic of, you know, whenever the RFP initially goes out, it's called one thing, and then when it's built, it's called something else. Could we just like add a column to that spreadsheet that's like, here's the address of the development. We don't know what it's going to be called, but this is where it's located. Like, could that be something that's helpful?
That's the way it's listed currently.
Okay.
It's currently listed like, you know, Fuller Street or whatever street it happens to be on.
I mean, like 123 Main Street, like whatever the actual address is.
Yes, the address is on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all. It sounds like that things are moving forward in a positive direction. Thank you.
Sharita? Go ahead.
I'm glad to hear all of that. But I want to piggyback on, I think, where Ricky was going with it. I've pretty much had to resort to just riding by the sites where developments are happening and trying to see who people are listed on the sign. And then I go to the internet and I try to find, like I just found one this week. That was not on the list, but I found it this week, and I found the application this week, and I've started working on applications for people. But I feel like and I put this in the chat. I think the problem is transparency and communication and how that is communicated across the board. You know, we have this this spirit of goodwill in our community to do things, but we don't always kind of let people know like what's happening and when is the time. You know what I'm saying? So by the time we find out, it's like too late, you know what I'm saying? Because we have to realize that even people who are housed are competing with our folks to get these better places, because the places that they live are oftentimes crappy. I'm sorry, but that's, you know, our folks' apartments are not as nice as other folks' apartments are around this town. But and so, you know, while you want to like understanding and get that, and the other folks that are housed have that same right to have access, we just almost just get pushed out and we don't have any access. And so I feel like this process and this communication, and maybe this role that's going to happen in CDD, maybe HSAC can lend its voice, because this is definitely one of the, like I had wrote kind of like a list of kind of the categories of things that came up in that discussion to try to also guide the discussion for policy and planning. And one of them is this process and this lack of awareness about what's happening and when, and how can HSAC give recommendations to multifamily or compliance about what we would like to see happen as new properties come online and how we would like to get communication. So the operationalization of how do we then get access to what, especially in situations where they've given us some dedicated or there's been some dedicated language to the cause. How do we make sure that that happens in a streamlined process and that everybody knows that process? Because everybody's not going to ride around Durham and find the properties. And technically, I don't feel like people should have to do that. I don't even feel like I should have to do that. I feel like it should just be readily available to me, but it's not. And I've just been trying to make the best out of that because I want to get people housed, and I don't want it to take long, and I want to get them stabilized and not in a temporary situation. So I feel like this is like one of those areas where HSAC does have a standing and saying, hey, these things are coming online and this is when you can apply and things like that, and like saying what it is that we feel like we need to know that so our folks have a chance to even access those benefits, because we just got to do better. And even in situations where there was a lost opportunity for units because they got leased all up before we were aware that the stuff was available, how do we go back and then recapture those agreements after there's an opening? And where's the accountability? Who holds who accountable when that happens? So I think there are a lot of things that we can talk about, because we've even talked about move on strategies for our folks, so to get them out of PSH so that we can open up a PSH slot for somebody else. And so I think the way that we handle new properties going online and the communication is going to help us as a system do better in serving people. And I'm gonna go, y'all. It's my birthday. I was supposed to be off, but I really wanted to contribute to this conversation. And I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday.
Thank
Enjoy your
you.
birthday.
Oh, thank you, whoever sent the cakes.
I know, it's cute, right?
Happy birthday, Sharita.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
Bye.
Okay, Ricky?
Yeah, this was just to, affirm, Sharita, we are working on it. The lead agency staff, we are working on it. We understand the importance of transparency, and, in a perfect world scenario, this all looks like, a dashboard, where we can see, what's coming up, what the units look like, and we're doing the best we can to review, contracts and written language, and we'll get that information out to the appropriate member so it can be utilized by our community in the way that was initially intended. So we're going at it. Please, bear with us as the homeless team builds capacity.
This isn't all on the homeless team. There's more to it than what we are able to do. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to rely on others to be able to pull together. And we are, as a department, working through all those pieces.
Thank you. Is there anything else that we need to add to the agenda?
So the agenda currently is approval of minutes, performance management update, most remembrance, in December. Anthony, how long do you want for that?
I'm sorry, the homeless remembrance. Probably
15 minute.
No. Well, you can leave 15 minutes, but it's more like a 5-minute sort of, making the announcement about it, just kind of stating whatever role he will take, whether it's, leading the candle lighting or just some other, part of it.
Do we want any feedback from HSAC on it? Any
We'd
discussion?
like to invite the entire HSAC to plan to attend it.
Okay.
And if there's, if there's feedback, people can just email me or email Brianna Van Velden.
Okay.
But yeah, I think feedback would be good. By email. I wouldn't necessarily want that meeting unless somebody knows something I don't, because it's only my second one. I don't. It's something that already exists and is planned almost like pit count, right? So it's kind of like there's a system already for it in place. And so for this year, I'd like to just see that play out, and then we can determine maybe after it this year how to get a wider net of feedback going to improve upon it. But I'd like for a formal invitation to HSAC and to all of their contacts. I'd really like for a bigger showing for a night of remembrance this year.
Yeah. And then a budget request to city and county for funding in the homeless system, recommendation from policy and planning. And then this was on here, just sharing priorities for future funds and RFPs.
Well, and I have a question about the budget request. It seems like so maybe HSAC is used to this. Again, I'm still in first, second year experience level with this navigation, but there's a education component and almost like an ongoing discussion. So like, to me, it feels somewhat weird to say, hey, HSAC, tell us what you want, right? And then to have people throw out ideas and numbers, and then for us to try to go ahead. Sorry.
So it would come out of policy and planning. Policy and planning would make a recommendation for, possibly on the priorities that they set at the September meeting. Perfect. They would say, here's what we would like, and we might not be ready for a full vote on this at the November meeting, but we need to start the conversations now.
Okay.
Because the budget process starts, and the sooner we can get things to decision makers, the sooner they can kind of have it in the back of their mind. Coming from, because we've historically submitted things in February, March frame, which is a lot later in the cycle. We're trying to move it up to make sure we're intentional and talk it through. And if policy and planning has some ideas, bring it to HSAC for a little bit of HSAC discussion, which might send it back down to policy and planning to flush it a little bit more, to bring it back in December. So there's a couple different ways to do it. I'm just trying to make sure we don't end up having to do this at the last minute. And
so what is the education component that, like, I think the description you just gave is great, right? So it's about, if we bring this up to HSAC, what is the necessary education component that needs to precede?
Well, policy and planning would figure out, here's what needed, here's the request, and here's why and how we came up with this, and feedback on it. And we sort of just explain the city budget and county budget process. But the work happens in policy and planning, not HSAC.
Sally?
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, since I brought up the update on the housing bond, if there really isn't, it sounds like it's sort of like things are moving forward in a great place. So if there's no, specific update, then, I guess it doesn't need to be on the agenda, but that's obviously up to y'all. I was just saying that since I brought it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. We'll make we sort of generally put our agenda together, and then sometimes tweaks need to be made between now and the meeting. based on either new information or information not being shared with us. And at that point, I reach out to Ebony, and Ebony and I have a conversation and say, hey, you know, this item needs to be pulled from the agenda. What do you think? And as chair, she has the authority to make those kind of adjustments to the budget. So this is kind of our ideal budget, not ideal budget, ideal
Agenda.
agenda. And
Yes, but I was like,
pull-
budget.
Yeah, and then sorry, budget stuff on my mind. And pull items from the agenda if needed based on circumstances and, you know, thinking through timing. If there's something else that's like, ooh, we really need to spend more time on this. And we need to take this one off and punt it. So we'll do that. And we'll know more after Monday's policy and planning meeting. But right now we've got a place to have an update on it. And we'll see what happens because there's a lot for policy and planning to tackle on Monday that I'm not sure all of it will get through on Monday. Including, I mean, yeah. All right, so this looks like a good agenda for now.
Ricky?
Thank you. So this isn't an item for the agenda. This is more of a, Madam Chair, wanted to get your thoughts on this. So, you know, I think conversations in the last few HSAC meetings have mentioned that, you know, the HSAC is the governing board, right? Like it's essentially a board meeting and should be, you know, following the agenda that's set. If there are, you know, HSAC committee members who have, you know, questions, they are allowed to speak and so forth. And really driving the community conversations to policy and planning and performance management and executive committee, right? So what are thoughts around making the HSAC meeting more of a panel style where HSAC committee members are, you know, part of the panel? You know, Zoom can be set up that way. So it's almost like a webinar, but the panelists are able to speak. And the gallery, if you will, is muted. I think that will help our HSAC meetings be more focused, more intentional, and will continue to further the point that deeper dives into community discussions and policies that are being created are for the other committees and allowing HSAC to truly act and perform like a board.
Yes, thank you, Ricky. Colin and I talked about this last week, or was it this week? I can't remember. But it's definitely our next agenda item that we're going to talk about how we're going to restructure our meetings. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. We're definitely going to talk about it after we complete the agenda. The agenda complete? Anything else we need to add? And we can talk about the structure of our HSAC meetings.
Do we need to include who's doing what and how long, that part of it?
Yeah, that's the last piece of it is sort of probably be this will probably be a little bit longer. And I'll have to talk to Sharita and see which way we want to go on this. 30 minutes. I'm going to move this priorities because I think this is going to be part of that budget request. Anthony, can you do the performance management update since we're without a chair right now?
I'll do my best. Ricky, what I was gonna, oh, never mind. Again, I'm getting when you asked me about performance.
You already put it
management-
out there. Keep going.
I
Keep
know,
going.
right? When you ask me about performance management updates, my mind immediately goes to what does the performance management agenda need to be? That's where my brain went, and I'm like, that's not what he's asking. He's asking about updating the HSAC on performance management. Yeah.
All right. I think we're good.
Yeah.
Anything else that needs to be on the agenda that anyone can think of?
Can we look at the future, Colin? Just go down a little bit and see what things are there.
Yeah, some of this is stuff.
I think does there need to be anything about the retreat? Because the retreat I think this year happened like around February or March. I know it was early in the year.
We need to think that through, and if we want to do a retreat again,
Okay.
And I got to check and see if there's money. We sort of did that with money that was for boards and commissions that came from the city. So we got
Right.
there's money in that budget to do that again, and
Okay.
how we want to spend that money. So once we figured that piece out, then I think yes, we would have a conversation about a retreat.
Okay. And then I guess the last item on the future, the separating COC meetings from full HSAC. Whether or not that needs to come back up. I'm just looking at these future things, and things are, they stay there month to month until we like move them up or get them off or whatever. So I just wonder if we need to bring that back up to light at this point. Because we have talked internally about what it would look like to have separate COC meetings or events twice a year, versus them being a part of HSAC. So I don't know if that's necessary, or if we just keep it going the way it is and take this off. But since it's on there, it looks like we should talk about it.
I think we need to. It's up to the committee. It's been a while since we've talked about it and looked at it and come up with whether or not there should be a recommendation, what the recommendation would be, whether or not executive committee would like thoughts and recommendations come back, or if it's something that we should kick around in a future executive committee meeting to bring a recommendation to the HSAC and the COC to discuss that topic. So we're not ready to bring it to a HSAC agenda meeting, an HSAC agenda item yet. It'd be more for a future. There needs to be some work done on it in a executive committee prior to an HSAC meeting.
Ms. Colleen?
Oh, and I'm trying to remember which meeting, but for the strategic plan, should that be included on the agenda at all? Or are we ready for that discussion?
Strategic plan. That we had a big long discussion about it in the HSAC meeting, and I got to go back and look at the minutes because I know there was a motion was made to bring in a consultant, and the HSAC is going to weigh in on it. I don't have an update on it, but we can go back. Does anybody remember the motion off the top of anyone's head? That's a great point, Colleen. I don't know that we haven't.
Yeah, not off the
wasn't-
top, but there, oh,
I was
Sally, do
thinking that
you
the
have it?
executive committee was sort of gonna draft the request. You know, I thought that was sort of the motion, that it went back to executive committee to, set the parameters for what a consultant would do.
That's right. Mhm.
Scope of work.
Yep, yes.
Thank you, Sally.
Thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
So we'll need to add that to a future executive committee meeting, and I need to find out where community development is in the process of doing an RFP for that type of work, because it's going to be part of another RFP that's going out. So I will, we may need to have a special meeting, depending on timing. If that would be all right with you, Madam Chair.
Sounds good.
Excuse me. This is Nova. So are you saying that the strategic plan is gonna come solely from the funds from city county? Because I thought I heard Wes say something about wanting to keep making the process smoother and perhaps allowing lead agency to be in the front seat, but not necessarily the driver? Did I hear that, or was it another topic? I'm
No,
sorry.
that was part of the discussion. I think the issue is we've got to figure out a lot of details to it. Housing for New Hope has some money that they can contribute to the RFP and are willing to do so. The question is, how do we pay for it? Where's the money coming from? What's the scope of work, and who does the consultant ultimately have a contract with and report to and get paid by? Ultimately, they're working on behalf of the entire continuum. So it really, we just need to work it through an executive committee to figure out how these funding sources get braided together so that we end up with something that'll work for everybody in a timely and transparent manner. So I
Right,
think there's a
because
lot of things
I
to be
think
worked
that's
on.
what I heard, the timeliness of the matter. Yeah.
And part of this is, and I think my concern is part of this, when it was brought up, we as the lead agency are getting ready to go through a procurement process to find somebody to assist with the con plan, the 5-year con plan, and the annual action plan that are due to HUD in the next year. Well, less than a year from now. So part of it is because you're looking for somebody to do those types of things from a cost-effective standpoint and a timing standpoint. It would make sense to do one RFP because you're looking for similar skill sets. And that's the piece that needs to be sorted out as to how do we get this done? And that's the piece that I need to talk with other people in the department about to find out what the timeline is so that we as the HSAC and executive committee can get together and draft items that need to be incorporated into that RFP so that we can get the right skill sets, and then making sure that there's evaluation criteria that may or may not need to be included as well. I hope that helps a little bit.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Okay. Is there anything else? We move to our last agenda item. Yes, okay.
Yep.
All right, so in our next agenda item, we're gonna talk about the structure along the lines what Ricky was saying a few minutes ago. That's what Colin brought to my attention during our 101. Was that this week, Colin? It seemed like it was last week, but okay, this week.
It was early this week.
Yeah, so
We
we
can
talked
do that.
about moving our platform to a webinar process. And so we wanted to open it up so we can have that discussion about, as Ricky was saying, only allowing HSAC members to be able to contribute to those meetings and not take us off course. So what are your thoughts about moving to a webinar?
I like the idea. I just want to make sure that we don't lose anything in the process. I definitely think it's the direction to go in, right? But there's also the culture of how the meetings have been run over the past couple of years that allow for example, the public comment, right? And so as long as we build in whatever that opportunity looks like, whether it's at the front of the meeting or at the end of the meeting, I think it's fine. I think, if we set our agenda and put it out the way that that it's going to play out, then I think we'll be fine with, with as long as we keep the spirit of the people front and center and allow ourselves to still get, good input, then I'm all for it. I think it will be a smoother run meeting for sure. And and we may be able to hear more from various HSAC members throughout the process. And we may even want to then think about standing agenda items such as, are there any announcements from HSAC members? And it gives them a chance to talk about things that might be going on in their worlds, whether it's law enforcement seat or whether it's county seat or whether it's business seat. There could be some interesting things that emerge from that kind of thing. So I support it. I think it's a great idea.
One of the things we mentioned about the public comment section, and Colin, please chime in at any time, is that I can spend a couple of minutes beginning of the meeting or our HSAC meeting explaining how people can do it. I was sharing with Colin that I wanted to make sure that people know how to go to the website and put their public comments so that their voice can be heard as well. So I agree with what you're saying.
Thank you. And then also, if there is a space, there's also the chat, right? And the chat, the other thing I've noticed about the meetings is one chat could send us down, sort of a rabbit hole, right? So it'd be interesting in the chat if the chat were, hope I'm not taking us off track too much. Please pull me back if I am. But having that chat be monitored, so that it makes sure that we stay on the agenda. And then if it allows us to go into other things, then we will. But I think the way it is now, anybody on the meeting can just chat and throw anything in the chat. And that often allows for an easy spiral, right? And so I'm just thinking about how we would deal with something like that. Like webinars that I go in, typically the chat is monitored by one person who will announce any relevant questions to the HSAC or to the chair, right? But if the questions aren't relevant, maybe it doesn't get announced or mentioned there, but maybe there's some sort of follow-up that happens on all the questions post the meeting, right? So it's still monitored, people still get their questions heard. It just doesn't spread out all the questions in the group for the purpose of derailing it or something like that. You follow what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So who would we assign that task to?
It could be us, whoever is
Okay.
monitoring the staffing the meeting or monitoring it or whatever.
Okay.
So let's put a little context here. part of the reason of how we got to where we are is when I first started, and Colleen has been here, Sally's been here a long time. I heard over and over again, the lead agency like was steamrolling and wasn't listening to others. And we kind of opened up more conversations. There's more voices being heard and trying to get more input. And I think the piece is, okay, have we perhaps overcorrected? And not in a bad way, but we need to have, there's certain discussions that we need to be having in policy and planning and performance management and executive committee, and we need more participation in those committees. And part of that is through our governance rewrite that will allow more voices to be heard in those meetings where the work is really being done. The other piece is we, as the lead agency, are really here to facilitate and be kind of the technical advisors and sort of help the HSAC and the continuum of care conduct the business that is required by HUD on a regular basis. It's not our job as the lead agency to dictate everything. There are some things that, yes, we do have to say, we cannot do this because regulations or whatever the issue may be, but it's our job to sort of help guide that process and work through it. So this is really something that it really is a decision that you as the executive committee need to kind of kick around, come up with some recommendations, decide whether or not you want to make a decision as an executive committee, or if it's something you feel should go back to a full HSAC for discussion as well. So I just kind of want to frame where we are, and we as the lead agency kind of work with you and for you, but also have to kind of help be a navigator or a guide to some degree. So that's all I'm going to say. Go.
Ricky, then Ms. Colleen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think Anthony raised a great point of saying that, you know, talking about this change to the structure of how the meetings operate is not in any way an intention to remove.
Ricky, you muted. It's muted.
I sure did. Anyway.
The last thing you said is not to.
It's not intended to remove the community from the conversation. Like, that is not all the spirit behind it, the intent of it, anything like that. It's to help HSAC form, for HSAC to perform with intention. Like, some of the goals that we have, it's only going to happen if we are structured in such a way where we can keep things, you know, out in front. And so I think, yes, there should be an opportunity for public comments, and like how people can do that should be advertised, and it'd be, you know, great if maybe that's something we do in the next HSAC coming up. But I also think there should be room at the end of the meeting that, you know, maybe the floor is given to the gallery to see if anyone has any questions related to the content that was presented in that meeting. So it's like you can say something before, and you also have an opportunity to respond, if you will, once the meeting is nearly done, you know, if anyone in the gallery has a question about one of the agenda items. Also, Anthony mentioned how sometimes information is placed in the chat and it's not helpful. Like, I don't think motions to do anything should be placed in the chat. That should be something that happens by one of the committee members out loud, and the HSAC committee members can decide if the motion moves forward or not. And sometimes information that's great but not helpful to that day's meeting is put in the chat. So maybe we can think about having more of a Q&A style, where we have a Q&A box, and if people have questions, they can be answered. It'll be monitored by someone, perhaps lead agency staff can do that. And if a question comes up and it's relevant to that day's agenda, it can be announced that it came up. Questions that are not relevant, guidance can be given to that person in an answer, or in a recommendation to attend policy and planning or performance management or executive committee and bring that topic up. Those are my thoughts.
Colleen's hand is raised.
Yeah, I think I had a question for Ricky, but I'm just trying to process what
Okay.
you just said.
Right.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Colleen.
As I say, go ahead. I, for what Ricky was saying in reference to the Q&A, that's where I was going with it. There's some different formats and ways that we can work through our Zoom meeting, and that would allow for folk to be able to put their questions in another space. What I'm thinking though is, because this is going to be a change, we need to do quite a bit around marketing. And if we say something this meeting, next meeting, and then activate it or do it in the January meeting or something, but make sure this information is shared to the entire body several times before you actually switch over to the new format, and invite people at every meeting. All of these discussions, happen in policy or in performance, come to those meetings. These are the dates, these are the times, this is how you log in, all of that, just more, so that we don't shift to this new format and leave people thinking, again, their voice is not going to be heard. There's no space to talk. And we're just doing things without input from community.
I like that, Ms. Colleen. I like that.
Me too.
So does this mean that we will add this to our agenda to share at our HSAC meeting, or does this mean we continue to talk about it and then add it in December? What are your thoughts? If we're talking about alerting the HSAC and the people who attend.
I think this is a discussion for you, Ebony, Colleen, and Sharita left, but I think it's sort of do we want to start the conversation, put something on the HSAC agenda for this month? We can go back and add it to the agenda for a discussion and sort of say HSAC, the executive committee is making a recommendation that we move to a webinar format that sort of goes back to the way it operated when we were in person. That's the easiest way for folks to visualize it. And sort of have a little bit of discussion about it. I don't know that you need to necessarily take a motion on it. I think executive committee can make a decision on how meetings are structured without that. But I agree 100%, Colleen, that discussion and over communicating about the change is definitely the way to go. Otherwise, we're going to get accused of steamrolling and putting things in and working in vacuums. And we don't want that to happen, because that is not the intent. The intent is to sort of do the work where the work needs to be done, and get people more involved where we need the work to be happening, and we need more bodies to do the work. I'm happy to add it to the agenda if you'd like me to. Ebony.
Ms.
It's really
Colleen,
up to y'all.
Ms. Colleen, what are your thoughts? I don't want to make the decision by myself. I want to.
I'm thinking
What are
if
your
you
thoughts?
at least announce or say something at this meeting, you
Okay.
definitely want to have it presented before everyone more than
Yes.
once. And if something can go out, I guess, attached to the agenda, I don't know who the agenda goes to. Is it to everybody?
The agenda only goes to HSAC members. And then it gets publicly posted after the meeting, or it gets publicly posted. So anybody who's interested would be able to see what's on the agenda if they go to the agenda center on the city website.
Looks like Jeffrey has a question.
Not actually a question, but more so a comment. I just think that I want to make sure that I'm sure everybody's already thinking that we affirmatively market it as a positive change, so that we can direct these conversations to the places where they should be. Since they're happening in the wrong place now, we can market it in such a way that we hear what you're saying. We want to make sure everybody has a voice. Now we want to show you where the appropriate places are for you to voice your concerns, for you to voice your ideas, and make sure that we're not just saying that, we're gonna stifle it here, but positively market it so that we can get some things done in a more structured way. Because I think that the present format impedes us being able to move forward with progress, because we go down rabbit holes when we should be discussing a particular topic. We get drawn off of topic. I think we're going to be much more effective in a new format where it's much more structured. That's my comment.
Thank you for that, Jeffrey. Anyone else? So Colin, I think we'll just build it into our already made agenda. Maybe I can mention that during the welcome after I talk about the how to complete the public comment section. I can kind of merge that to put those two things together. Eliza, I think I saw you come off mute, I think.
You did, but it was an accident.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
So I will add it, change in HSAC meeting. Change in HSAC meeting structure and timeline for implementation that you can sort of walk folks through, Ebony.
Okay. I may have to call Jeffrey because I like his wording. Just kidding.
That might take a little bit. There might be some questions. So do you want to sort of give it about 10 minutes?
Okay.
Okay. We'll work on the timing of all of it.
So we have about 14 more minutes. Do we have anything else? No? Okay, we can give people 14 minutes back if there isn't anything else. Look at Ricky, she says, yes, I'll take it. Do I make a motion to end?
I had a quick question that I put in the chat only
Oh,
because
I'm sorry.
we have an annotated schedule for November and we have the policy and planning meeting on Monday. And I was wondering if the agenda has gone out.
It is. Rita and I were still trying to get it finalized. I was waiting for one item from her.
She's celebrating her birthday now, so I guess we'll get it Monday.
Yeah, I've got it. I know what she wants based on what she said today. She was just trying to think through, but I think I've got the agenda. I'll send it to you shortly.
Thank you.
Anything else? All hearts and minds are clear? Yes. All right. I'll make a motion.
I think you can adjourn us. You don't need a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Well, we'll adjourn our meeting and I look forward to seeing some of you in policy and planning on Monday. Have a great weekend.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Enjoy.